Welcome back to another episode of the 38 Stars podcast. Today we discuss the Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's right, Anthony. And honestly, this is probably going to be our most controversial and longest episode of our Bill of Rights series because it's a really short amendment and there's a lot to be left up to interpretation. So, Ashton, if you don't mind reading it for us.
Yeah, for sure. So the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of a starting question to like how this personally affects y'all. I was curious if y'all have ever shot or seen real firearms before.
I have not shot a real firearm before. I've only shot a BB gun, but I have family that has guns and that I've seen with guns before.
Gotcha. Ashton?
So I've shot some 9mm with my grandpa and some 12 gauge and some 24 and 45 just stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool. And then I've been on private ranges before, and I've gotten the opportunity to shoot fully automatic machine guns like the Scar.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I've shot a 50 cal. I've shot 9mm. I've pretty much done everything except for shotguns. Shotgun's the only thing I haven't done yet. So yeah. But anyways, kind of jumping right in. There's a lot of different interpretations of this one, guys. But typically people derive two meanings from the Second Amendment. The first one is the people must be able to band together to fight a domestic or foreign invader. And the second one, which kind of ties into that a little bit, is the people must be able to resist an oppressive government and defend themselves. And so, especially in the 21st century, the precedent has kind of shifted from the people must be able to form a militia to fight an enemy to the people must be able to resist an oppressive government or individually be able to defend themselves.
Mhm.
And so, kind of the climax of this movement is DC versus Heller, which was a 2008 Supreme Court decision.
Mhm.
It was a 5-4 decision in which the plaintiff wanted to have a gun at home for self-defense, but the District of Columbia said, hey, if you want to own a gun, it's got to be locked away. It's got to be disassembled. You can't have live ammo in it, and you can't take it outside your house. And the plaintiff was like, then why even own one? Like that's
Mhm.
just it's just a brick.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just a piece of metal at that point. And so the Supreme Court said, yeah, you're right. That is just a brick. You do have the ability to actually have that loaded in your home. Be ready to use it for self-defense. So
Mhm.
what do you guys think of this kind of shift from we need to have guns just in case we need to like band together to form a militia versus the right to defend yourself in the moment and be ready to have that gun ready to defend yourself at any time. So what's our kind of opinions on this?
I think the right to defend yourself and the individual being able to have a gun that's loaded and ready to use is much more important in the modern day than banding together to form a militia. And I say that because we live in a world like now, I think that's way different than when the founding fathers were around, where, there's a world where we, in the next 20 years, yeah, like there is a militia formed by the civilians that goes against our own government or something like that. But I think the more precedent issue right now is protecting ourselves from criminals. I genuinely think that's the big thing. Like if some dude walked into my house, I feel safe knowing that my dad has a gun that can protect us if necessary.
I agree, Anthony. Yeah, I feel like people should be able to have and own guns and stuff
Mhm.
for protection. Yeah, I think it's more of the modern day against criminals than of kind of a militia. But I also do understand what you're saying that we do need these weapons for in case if we need to start a
If
militia.
it
So
did need to
if
happen,
it did
yes.
need to happen. So
I
yep.
think another thing is like if you take away that right to being able to have a loaded gun and be ready, um, then you're kind of taking away innocent people's ability to have defense. Because let me ask you this: do you really think that a criminal is going to follow that rule? Like, do you think criminals are just going to be like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'm just gonna like that's the rule now. I'm gonna leave my gun." Like, no, you're just giving criminals more power and taking away innocent civilians' ability to defend themselves. So I think they ruled it the right way by allowing people to have guns and being able to take them outside. I think concealed carry is 100% uh, a good thing, and I think it promotes safety in certain environments.
Yeah, so kind of Anthony, if they took that right away from us, there's so many guns in circulation, with just the American people. I don't think, and it's our right. It's been our right for
Exactly.
250 years. So I think, I think it would just us rebel against the government
Exactly.
more
I don't
than
think that would. It
it,
just wouldn't
it,
work out.
it, no, it, the government couldn't do it.
They couldn't do
There's
it.
so many weapons and regulation. It just wouldn't
Exactly.
work.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
And so what you guys are kind of saying, you're agreeing with the Supreme Court in the interpretation that the first clause of the Second Amendment is contextual. So what that basically means is it's context for the second half. You don't think it's actually like law. Like all of the First Amendment, every single word of that is law. It's not context to the law.
Yeah.
So you guys think that this first half is kind of contextual, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. You think that's kind of more contextual than, oh yeah, we need to be ready for forming a militia? Is that what y'all are kind of saying here?
100%. I think that the militia, in the way that I interpret it, I don't think we're going to be forming a militia against a foreign invader. I just so again, it could happen, right? That's one of the reasons am I kind of agree with the Second Amendment almost is no one is there's no foreign invader who's going to invade America and make it to, Colorado because we have so like the civilians have more guns than the government. That's not going to happen. But I don't think the threat is a foreign invader as much as it is like ourselves or our own government. So can you explain a little more what you mean when you say the regulated militia part contextually to the gun ownership?
Because of Heller saying, or DC versus Heller, where the Supreme Court says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, is context and not like actual law. It's not because of the militia. This is the only reason you get to have guns. It's just context to you get to have guns. You can take that away.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense
So
a little
that was just
more.
context to the day, what the founding
Yeah,
fathers
yeah, yeah,
were
yeah, yeah, yeah,
intending
yeah.
to say. Like, this is
Okay.
just context for why we're letting you have guns. So because that's context, we can take that away in a contemporary
And
perspective.
put it into the modern day. Okay,
Exactly.
okay. That
Yep.
100% makes sense to me now.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. And so a few other cases have come up after that that have really changed how we look at that too. Because we're considering the first clause of it contextual,
Yep.
what qualifies as arms? Because before we considered it contextual, the guns you could have were the ones that would benefit the military, would benefit
Yeah.
the militia. So, like actually lethal firearms. But Catano versus Massachusetts kind of changed this idea. A woman was convicted of carrying an illegal stun gun under Massachusetts law because she was defending herself against her boyfriend, which, there's a restraining order and all that. She didn't actually tase him, but she got in trouble for owning that stun gun. And she appealed to the Supreme Court, and the court decided 8-0 that even weapons that didn't exist at the time are covered by the Second Amendment. Again, because Heller versus DC, they decided that that first clause was contextual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what do we kind of think of these other non-lethal arms being protected under the Second Amendment? Do you think that should be the case with that
It should be the case.
modern interpretation,
It should be the
or
case
in
because
general?
the context has changed. Like because exactly what we were just saying, the point isn't necessarily to form a militia as much anymore as it is self-defense. Like, yeah, 100% people should be able to own a stun gun. And non-lethal weapons. I agree with
It was illegal in the Massachusetts bought it like own a stun gun, but I just feel like if she got in trouble, it's kind of against her Second Amendment rights a little bit to own a weapon.
that. Well, and would you rather someone own a stun gun or threaten that dude with a pistol?
Probably the stun gun because it's less lethal,
Exactly.
right? So,
But the reasoning of some people who say it's for the malicious purpose,
Yeah.
say this wouldn't be useful to the military at all.
Okay.
It's not a weapon you'd see being used in war.
So do they think that we should have that right now? people should have access to everything that the government uses in war? Is that what that same side is saying?
No, they're saying that what a militia would have access to, which is less. So
A
think,
militia would have
so
access to.
yeah, a modern example of militia would be like the National Guard, kind of. It's not an actual militia, but it's like a close equivalent of what a modern militia would look like.
Okay.
The National Guard is, they don't have huge fighter jets
Uh-huh.
and stuff like that. They're a bunch of armed dudes walking around with bulletproof vests on, protecting, whatever they're instructed to protect by the governor.
So basically, this is very similar to what I just said. Is the context has changed. We're not talking
Right.
about creating a militia, you know, as much anymore. The main point right here for the Second Amendment is the self-defense part. So yeah, 100% people should be able to own a stun gun. And who's to say it wouldn't be useful to a militia, But again, that's not the point. The point is that it's an act of self-defense. So it's different context than it would be for just creating a militia.
So here's my devil's advocate question for you.
Okay.
Forget about DC versus Heller.
All right.
Why has the context changed?
Because the world's changed. Number one, when the founding fathers created the Second Amendment, were there automatic weapons, and were there
No.
a bunch of these, were there stun guns, were there all these things? No, there weren't.
Right.
And the founding fathers couldn't have possibly foreseen those things being created. So that automatically implies that there should be a change to the rules, because as technology advances, so should law. Like, you can't just it's outdated.
Well, with that logic, then, would you recommend updating the Second Amendment?
How would we do that? I don't think it's necessary. Do you think it's
You don't
necessary?
think it's necessary? Well, I think you just said it's necessary by saying, well, the world has changed so much, we have to think of it in a different way. What's the difference between enforcing that in common law versus through statute? And statute is like legislative action, so like by Congress or city ordinance or whatever.
What would need to be updated in it? Like,
Well,
if in my example, like,
you're saying, the world has changed so much and there's all these new weapons.
true,
Like, why doesn't it need updating to account for that?
because the intentions of the amendment remain the same without it being changed. Because the intentions were that that civilians, they have access to weapons so that they can, whatever reason you want to say.
But to get to where you are, you have to first say that first clause in the Second Amendment is contextual.
Okay, yeah.
You have to say it's not law. So how do you get there without that Heller versus DC case?
Why does it have to be without that?
Well, because that's what's written there. I mean, that was the opinion of the justices in 2008.
Okay.
That was contextual.
Why is it contextual without that?
Yeah. Why do you think it should be contextual if we're talking about the Second Amendment in terms of just self-defense?
Well, because the times have changed. That's why it should be contextual. Like, the context of, I guess I'm a little confused. Maybe it seems like, but like, the amendment then, just like every other amendment, doesn't mean the same thing now. Like, so the context has changed. So yeah,
So then why don't we change it? Why don't we change the law to fit with the times?
just the regulated militia part, or like what would need to change about it?
I don't know. What do you think needs to be changed?
I think that the amendment right now perfectly explains it. Like,
You just contradicted yourself, though.
how so?
You said the times have changed, and so we
Yes.
have to think of this law differently.
Okay.
Why are we interpreting a law differently when we can just change the law to fit our interpretation? More clearly, that is.
Okay. And so how do you I that's a good point. So how should we do that? Like, how like, what could change in it? I mean, what
I
do you
suppose
say?
you could make it more specific. I wouldn't do that though.
What would you do? Would you do nothing?
I don't want to change it.
You
I'm
don't want
just
to
being a
change it.
devil's advocate. I'm trying to.
No, yeah, I totally get what you're doing.
Yeah, I feel like they shouldn't we shouldn't change the Second Amendment because I just feel like if they changed it, then there would be I just don't think a lot of American people would, specifically in Texas and stuff like that. I don't think I don't think the American people would like the Second Amendment being changed. I feel like it would be kind of like a mass outbreak. Yeah.
I feel like it doesn't need to be changed to still encompass the modern day context. I feel like it still like has the same meaning like regardless.
Okay.
Because in my opinion, the way I would interpret it is not that the well-regulated. I know that the Supreme Court is saying otherwise, but I would say that the well-regulated militia thing is completely separate from the gun ownership in that we have the right to form a militia and we have the right to own guns. I don't think they go together necessarily as much as you're saying that the Supreme Court is saying. I think they're two separate things, and I feel like
Okay. So can I draw a distinction here?
okay, yeah.
Militias are not paramilitary. Well, they are paramilitary organizations, but they are organized by the government. It's like volunteer firefighter versus professional firefighter.
Okay.
Both of those are like under Cooter Fire District or whatever. You can have volunteer firefighters and professional firefighters, but there's not random people firefighters.
Okay.
So the militia is still organized by the government. I just wanted to make that distinction.
Okay.
Yeah. So we don't necessarily have the right to form a militia because that's a government formed thing.
Okay. I
Yeah.
got you.
So when you say that the government like to form a militia, you have it's like a government forms. Well, isn't a militia supposed to be against the government? So if the government was no,
That's kind of
No,
my
that's not a militia.
that's kind of what I'm saying. So what is that then? Just a
A,
guerrilla?
a militia
Or, like-
is it's like volunteer firefighters versus professional firefighters.
Yeah, okay, but
The difference
what's
is
the point in forming a militia against an oppressive government if the only people who can form a militia is the oppressive government?
well, hopefully it's federalism. There's different levels of government.
Okay.
So like a state has militia. Like there's state militias, so like the National Guard. Like I think it's reserves. There's like
So like what so
oh
like
yeah,
you're
National
saying
Guard.
that the local Wellington community could form a militia
No.
with our no, we
No.
can't do that.
So there's a state
Against
there's a
if like
state
what if
National
what
Guard.
if Colorado was like this oppressive state with the government?
Well, then that's what the second half of the Second Amendment is for.
Is the right to own guns.
Do you think maybe they meant to encompass both rights or encompass defense and for the sake of militia or just militia?
Like that's kind of what I'm getting at is when you can read it and interpret how you want, but when I think about it, I'm trying to think of what the founding fathers were intending, right?
In
And
order to have a well-regulated militia,
Yeah.
so a functioning militia, so a
it
functioning
needs to be
military,
with the government forming it.
right? A militia is just like, again, like
Yeah,
volunteer
okay.
firefighters. In order to have a functioning volunteer firefighter, the rights of the firefighters to carry water hoses and axes shall not be infringed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right.
So the original amendment literally had nothing to do with self-defense.
Well, that's what some people claim. But you are thinking that the first clause is contextual and it should be modernly interpreted as we have the right to defend ourselves independently of the government because modernly the enemy is much more likely to be the government
Yeah.
itself than a foreign invader.
That is what I'm saying.
So I think this lies more in the security of a free state part. Maybe not in the fact that we're going to have foreign invaders and we need the militia to be ready, but rather that it's going to be a domestic threat to the security of our free state.
Yeah. But again, I feel like a domestic threat, like I don't really feel like the Second Amendment, if my true opinion is I don't feel like the Second Amendment is going to protect us against our own government like a domestic threat if they were to go against us. Like what are we going to do against our own government if they were to if we were to
Nothing.
go exactly.
Yeah.
There's
we're
nothing
just-
we can do.
We're doomed. Yeah.
So I hear people say this all the time that there's going to be like a civil war against our own country. Like I've heard this. I've heard people say this that there's going to be like a civil war within the next 20 years in our own country, and we're going to go against our government. Like it's brewing. And the truth is, there's been a civil war in our country for the past 20 years, and it's an info war that's in the press.
Yeah.
The truth is, the Second Amendment isn't how you fight against the government and fight against a domestic threat. It's the First Amendment. the First Amendment and using your freedom of speech and the freedom of press is how you combat the government. But the problem is that people, they don't do their research, and they don't. You need to look at all sides. You need to gather information. And what's happening is the government or the press, whatever you want to say, has divided us so far apart in these past, like this whole century, in the 21st century, that we're so divided.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like the First Amendment is a little more how you get into how you combat the government, and it's not really even the Second Amendment as much. For me, the Second Amendment applies to self-defense primarily.
And the
I
Supreme
I
Court
don't
agrees with
I
you.
genuinely don't believe anymore that us forming a militia is a concern for the Second Amendment, like at all, really.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Unless there was like some super ultra well organized group, which, by the way, has historically not held up. Courts typically say you're not allowed to have dangerous or unusual weapons.
Hmm.
That's just a um, historical tradition in the U.S. to, not let people have that because typically that's dangerous for the public and against the security of a free state. And that's kind of the next thing I wanted to get into. If the original purpose of the Second Amendment was for us to either band together to fight against a foreign enemy in the means of a militia or otherwise fight against an oppressive government, then why can't we have the same weapons that the government has? And this is a really red hot topic. I was looking this up for already defined cases in the courts, and there's several that are pending right now.
Really interesting.
It's a red hot topic. No state ban on automatic rifles, so we're talking AR-15 style, AK-47, or 50 caliber. So like we're thinking pretty large weapons. Weapons that in war can be used to take down a lot of
Hmm.
people at once. None of those bans have been struck down by federal courts, but there have been some that have been struck down in district courts. So I think there are 94 district courts and 13 circuit courts. Circuit courts are the federal ones, and then the Supreme Court. So 94 districts, 13 circuit courts, one Supreme Court. And that's how our court system works. Well, and then there's, little state courts as well. But no federal court has struck down one of those bans. There was a case recently where it was a bunch of individuals challenging Maryland's ban on assault weapons. And the state of Maryland defined assault weapons as an assault long gun, so AR-15, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anything capable of semi-automatic fire, so you don't need to, you know,
Yeah.
pump action or bolt action. You just hit the trigger and it fires. That's what the state of Maryland was defining as an assault rifle. So this doesn't include handguns.
Okay.
The district court decided that because these weapons were intended for military combat, right? They're meant for war and long periods of
Yep.
time. They were overkill for self-defense in light of DC versus
Yeah.
Heller, because this was post DC Heller, and so they thought it was overkill for self-defense, and it's not protected by the Second Amendment, which was interpreted to say you have the right to self-defense. Additionally, like I was saying earlier, U.S. courts have a tradition of upholding bans of dangerous and unusual weapons like bombs, rockets
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
explosive drones, anything like that that's kind of unusual for self-defense. So yeah, what do you guys think of these bans on assault rifles and larger weapons that would be useful in case of defending against an oppressive government?
Very same thing that I was just talking about, where I genuinely just don't think we need, like, that's not the context of the Second Amendment anymore. We're not gonna rise up against our own government. We're not gonna go against some foreign enemy. We don't need those guns to use that. And that's exactly what DC versus Heller did, is it redefined the terms of the Second Amendment by making it self-protection, which I completely agree with. Because again, we're not gonna we don't stand a chance against our own government in a military battle. You know what I'm saying? But again, like I said, the First Amendment and information and press, that's how we combat our government.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you I kind of agree with what you're saying, Anthony. So, yeah, we don't need these explosive drones or these rockets or these bombs to for self-defense. I think we don't need automatic weapons. I think pump bolt action. I think that- that's enough for self-defense. And the same thing with the definition of the Second Amendment's changed. So, we can't combat our government. So,
And those weapons promote destruction, and they
Mm,
honestly do promote shootings. Like
yeah.
they do.
What I'm noticing about your viewpoint, Anthony, is you have a
Okay.
lot of faith in a not corrupt government. So, what does happen when our government ceases to provide our rights that are guaranteed in the First Amendment?
Well, okay. So you're saying that we no longer have we can't like in this dystopian world, we don't have press. We don't have the freedom of press, and our First Amendment rights are very limited.
Right. Well, and
So do you think that we stand a chance, even if we had those guns? Do you think we stand a chance against our own government, like
I
in a
mean,
battle? Do you think that we would go to a war against our own government?
maybe on an individual's basis,
So
maybe not on an organized level, but on an individual basis, where you're just defending your home from oppressive government practices. Maybe if you have
that,
higher
in my opinion,
capacity weapons,
is very extreme. I don't think
that's
that
pretty extreme.
I don't think our government would get or our country would get to a point like that. And again, if we did, I don't feel like because who are the people fighting in our government? You know what I'm saying? Like no one's gonna. There's no one in the government. Maybe there's a few. I mean I don't think so, but I'm talking about like soldiers and fighter pilots. Like they're not gonna attack their own people. Like they believe in those amendments. They're not gonna let that it get to that point, and they're not gonna go against us. But if you're talking about like on an individual level, like you're saying, I mean, almost yeah, like I guess we're cooked. I mean, I don't think it's gonna get to that point
I
where the
mean,
First Amendment is completely taken away like that because because of our checks and balances and the way our system runs. I don't think so. But do you think like
yeah, there's a lot of like for example, banana republics. Have you heard that term before?
I've definitely heard it, but I don't know what it means.
So basically, through the 19th and 20th century, a lot of the countries in Central America became increasingly more authoritarian, and we actually had a lot of weight in influencing their politics with the CIA and everything.
Okay.
And it's because they were exporting bananas. We wanted their bananas, and so it came out to where they had a fake democracy. It looked like a democracy on the outside, but on the inside it was really just an oligarch. So what do you think about that when we have democratic backsliding, which could happen? We've seen it happen all throughout history many times, like Russia, Putin being president for like what 20 some
Okay.
years. That's democratic backsliding.
Yeah.
It does happen.
So if we had that in our country,
If we had that in our country, which is very possible. We are not perfect. There are evil people in the United
okay,
States.
yeah,
There's evil people anywhere.
true. So you're asking if that happens, then what? Do you think
Then what? Yeah, exactly.
like do you think that if that were to happen, then it's then basically saying it's necessary for us to have RPGs and assault rifles?
That's what the government has. That's what the military is going to be coming after us with.
You think the military is going to be coming after us with that?
Worst case scenario,
I
like
just I genuinely I don't believe that there are soldiers in our military that are gonna come after us with that. Like they are people too who can who who believe in what our country was built on, which is not the democratic backsliding like you're saying. And
right.
they're not gonna give into that. Like I'm being like that's genuinely what I believe. Like they're not gonna come after the people and go to war with us.
But we have to have those protections in case they do. That's why we are a country of freedom, is because we have those protections in place, not just because we believe in the institutions we have.
Okay. And but we have guns, but I just feel like there's no reason for someone to have a rocket launcher, I feel like. Like do you think that it's necessary
I
for people to
mean,
have that?
no, I don't, but like in a case where we do have an oppressive government, like that's the only way we're going to be able to fight back. And so what
Even
I'm
then we can't fight back if it's as extreme
I
as you're
know.
saying.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to Yeah, we're cooked. That's why we have other checks and balances in place to make sure that doesn't happen. The truth is, if you really want to talk about it, then let's the people in the United States need to educate themselves and elect better representatives at that point. Like and use our system and force it. Don't let like that happen.
For sure, for sure. Maybe we could have a balance where the original interpretation of the Second Amendment, so I'm talking like militia stuff,
Yeah.
could be allowing for larger weapons, so like assault style rifles, things like that,
Okay.
in case of something like that, as kind of a last resort use. But then for the everyday defense of the individual, it could be more like handguns, revolvers, that
So
kind of thing.
when do people get to have access to the ARs?
I honestly don't know what that would look like. I'd have to think on it.
Yeah. Because I just don't agree with it. Like I feel like that whole problem is not it's not a concern with the Second Amendment, I believe. I think that's more of a concern with our institutions and our practices as Americans. We need to take better control of our country. And again, it goes back to what I was saying before, where the division that's been caused in this country, that's the issue. The issue isn't that we don't have ARs and rocket launchers, because at the same time, like those things, they can be harmful. And
Yeah, I totally
again,
agree.
I feel like shootings, they're gonna happen no matter what the weapon is. Like yeah, like I guarantee you, like most school shootings are probably with. I mean, I don't know actually. Are they with ARs or are they with handguns? I'm guessing they're with handguns,
That's a great
but
question.
I don't know.
So according to the NIH, we're looking at handguns were the most used weapon in school
Hmm.
shootings. 85%.
Okay, I totally like that makes sense.
Yeah,
But like the Supreme Court said, those like ARs and all that, it's just overkill. Like there's no point in having that for self-defense. But it's just at the end of the day though, there's another point where it's like they're destructive. Like in my opinion, those big
yeah,
guns and
I
the
totally agree with
explosives,
you.
they're
They are
destructive and they
destructive.
promote this violent like
Yeah,
culture.
yeah,
But
I
at the
agree.
same time, I also am all for less government control in what we have.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's hard.
maybe. Yeah, I mean, like maybe that's part of the reason why we have state national guards
Yeah.
is for something like that because they are pretty well armed. They've got all the big
Yes.
guns.
Yeah.
In some cases, they've even got airplanes and helicopters and all that stuff that are armed. So maybe, yeah, I don't know,
Here's the
cause
thing. I strongly believe that if we get to a point where we need to go against our own government, then we already
yeah,
because
I agree.
it's not the problem isn't that. The problem is that we as people, as voters, as Americans, we don't fully understand the power that we have and we need to be more united in what our goals are and reaching them through diplomacy and our
Through
or
democracy,
democracy,
yeah,
yes.
through the means of
And
democracy. I totally
not
agree
be
with you.
ready, not be like going ready to fight a war. That's not the big issue here.
Yeah,
It's right now Americans have the power to utilize their power as voters and as Americans who can make change in this country
right,
to prevent that from happening.
right. Yeah,
That's what I believe.
yeah, I totally agree, man. So something that's kind of in a gray area then is high capacity magazines.
Okay.
They don't just exist for big assault rifles; they actually exist for like pistols and
Yes,
stuff too.
true.
So
Okay.
what do you think of that? What do y'all think of high capacity magazines? So ones that are bigger than traditional magazines.
So I know traditional it actually varies state by state. So
Okay.
Colorado has more stricter gun laws than state like Iowa or most of the Midwest. So see like it's a little confusing because why should it be state by state? Why should that be different? Why is Colorado more of a stricter? Is it because of population
Well, we have in
magazine
my opinion it would probably be because we have a lot of history with school
with school
shootings.
shootings like
And state rights too.
in state
Yeah,
rights?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the gun laws kind of are like the same as like our like government, like how strict our government or not our government, our state laws are. Kind
I guess yeah, in that instance, yeah. I
of.
feel like again, like what is the point? Like why would someone need that? Why would someone need a big huge magazine?
See, I don't know, cause bigger magazine, it's more dangerous. It makes the weapon more dangerous.
And you
So
can like let's say this I really want to get into this, the whole like, um, I want like this whole school shooting thing because it's like, why should a 12-year-old kid who has a mental issue like have access to a gun that can kill 30 people versus one that, if like they shouldn't have access to it in the first place, but that one can kill 30 people and this one can kill 5. Because with the larger magazine, they are able to do more damage. I just feel like it's unnecessary. Like, and I guess the point is that we need to have the weapons so we can combat our government. But I've already said like my opinions on that kind of. So it's like, you know,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Anthony. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just kind of like a sensitive top. Um, yeah, there's a lot of really big gray areas. I feel like, I don't know.
Okay, so in the name of not having our episodes go for 3 hours long, unlike some other podcasts, which really makes me upset. I don't want to listen to 3 hours straight. We're going to make this a 2-parter, and so we will see you guys in the second part. Thanks for tuning in. 38 Stars is an independently produced podcast. If you liked today's episode, please consider leaving a review and telling your friends. You can contact us by emailing 38starsbusiness@gmail.com or contact us via our Instagram or Facebook. Thank you for listening.